Franchise growth isn't just about opening more doors. It's about building strength behind every one of them. It's about leadership, systems, and consistency that scales. Now, in this episode, we're going to dive into how one leader went from running her own franchise to leading the entire brand.
Welcome to Fordify Live with your host, Ford Saeks.
Joining me today is Aly Van Eiten. She's the CEO of House of Kolor USA, a brand that's redefining confidence through color and personal style. And of course, I show up in a black t-shirt today. So Aly's story is one of true progression. She started as the 35th franchise owner way back in 2019 and helped bring them to today to having more than 150 new franchisees and head of recruitment. So Aly, let's get into the conversation. We were talking in the green room that it's just a conversation. I don't know what I'm going to ask. You don't know what you're going to say. But thank you for joining me today. And of course, I'm the poster child. We can talk more about, because I'm going to ask you some personal questions, and I'm going to get a freestylization. So tell us a little bit about what the company is and how did you get into that role?
Yeah, thanks, Ford. Well, thanks for having me. It's so great to meet you. I came into the company really by accident. I found out about it. A friend called me in 2017 and said, "Hey, if you ever move back to Des Moines, let's start this business together." And I thought it was interior design at first. And,
Right.
2017 businesses are just starting to market using Instagram and social media. And I looked it up and right away I understood it. Okay, there's the before color analysis and then after. And I realized, okay, you're using clothing. Now, as I started to learn about color analysis, I learned this was a big thing in the 80s and 90s. So there used to be a direct sales model, and my mom and all her friends were telling me, oh yeah, we went to a party that had that, and it was a whole thing. But when I had it done, I realized this is a pretty in-depth process. You're sitting there for a couple hours, you see how your skin changes, and the information you get, it applies not just to clothing, but for women, hair color, men too, your glasses, your jewelry. We have a makeup line. And it really transformed how I felt about myself in that season of life. I had 4 young kids and was going through postpartum depression. And it was like this light came back on again for me when I would go shopping and I'd get diapers. I'd just get a t-shirt in my color. And all of a sudden, I enjoyed getting dressed again. I felt like myself again. I had a creative outlet. I had a conversation to connect with people. And that really propelled me into wanting to be a part of the brand. So that's how I found out about House of Kolor.
Well, for those of you listening, we are live right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and a few other places. And the audio from this episode also becomes the Business Growth Show podcast. So if you're looking for this later, you can also go to find her and anything about the company at House of Kolor. And that's HOUSE, like House of, and then COLOUR.com. So houseofkolor.com. Check them out online and check it out. But today it's about business growth, right? So, you came in and you've been growing. What are some of the challenges that you had to overcome during the growth of the organization?
Yeah, well, so as a franchise owner, there were a lot of challenges because our franchisor was based in the UK and we had this rapid growth during the pandemic. You mentioned it at the beginning. We added 150 franchisees within 2 years. And that really propelled us forward as a brand. And then we really needed a strong foundation for all of our franchisees operationally. So when I came in, some of the challenges were, how do you build that out when you have people really attached to how they're operating day to day? And they'd been given a lot of freedom as entrepreneurs to really define the brand themselves. And how do you pull back on that a little bit as a franchisor and keep the authenticity, but stay true to a brand identity and do all of that at once? And so it was an interesting challenge. And it was one I took on that challenge 2 years ago when I stepped into the role as the CEO.
Well, I know as a CEO, I mean, I've had 17 different companies, 3 were 7 figures. And I always didn't lead always the best. I was kind of a driver and I didn't understand leadership and I didn't understand culture, leadership, management, team building, communication, change, all the things that you have to do. I mean, I always focused on, well, how do we get more customers? How do we add more value? Which is what I do as a business growth accelerator, right? I go in and I help brands do that. But over the years, I've also realized that, there's really the wheel of excellence. You have to have happy customers, happy employees, and a happy bank account. And if you don't have those three things happy, something's not going to work right. So as a CEO, you juggle a lot of different things, especially, with a multifaceted brand and with franchisees that maybe had, especially I've worked with a lot of brands on the growth phase, under 100, over 100, all the way up to thousands. And, there's always that thing in franchising where the franchisor would just like the franchisee to follow the system. Like you're giving them the system, you're giving them the tools, you're teaching them, you're training them, you're doing events, and you just want them to use it. And then the franchisee is like, look, I spent the money. It's my business. I can do what I want. Or why aren't you, what have you done for me lately? Right. So it's that franchise relationship. So as CEO, you've had to navigate a few of those challenges, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. Big time. Yeah. And it's exactly what you said, in your journey as a business owner and a founder and an executive. You had a period of time where you realized, okay, there's some things I didn't know before. And then how do you get access to the information that takes you forward when you're trying to build a great culture and you're trying to be more of a servant-minded leader and you're trying to keep those relationships intact while also keeping your bank account full.
Right.
And, so navigating through that, I think, was just getting access to resources. I only knew what I knew as a franchise owner. And then at the end of my time as a franchise owner, I realized, some of what I'm trying to do on my own, the franchisor has for me. I want to access that more. Why am I recreating this over and over again? They have it. So it was really knocking on their door and holding them accountable. And then when I came into my role as CEO, it was really saying, okay, now that was my experience as a franchisee. Is that everybody's experience as a franchisee at House of Kolor? Oh, they're in different regions. They have different needs, or they have different strengths. So they can actually offer us something. And then on the corporate side, we've got an amazing corporate staff in the US, and then we have a global team. A lot of them are based in the UK. What resources do we have internally? And then for me and my growth, it was looking around at franchising, at women in leadership, at people that have scaled in the same variety of businesses, and saying, what resources do you have that I can get to know? So it's that curiosity along the way, I think, that has helped us overcome some of those challenges.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the scariest thing to me are the people who think they know everything and don't know what they don't know. Right. I mean, they're not open-minded. They're closed-minded. They have negative self-talk. They're reactive, not proactive. They're blame issues versus being coachable. And, I've been humbled over the years. So, I mean, I think, again, I've had a few businesses and I've had a few challenges, and now having worked with, hundreds of franchise brands and associations and corporate brands, I've had an opportunity to really see the best practices. And I think that's what I like so much about franchising is that, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And a lot of times the franchisees are making it too hard. And as a keynote speaker, when I speak at a conference, my role is twofold. One, I'm a third-party endorsement for the brand so that it echoes the things that they need to hear in a way that doesn't sound preachy or telling them what to do. At the same time, giving them a fresh perspective to reignite them to what they're doing. But on your brand with your franchisees, I mean, what's your percentage of men versus women franchisees?
We have mostly female franchisees right now. And so we've had several men over the years. And then recently we're expanding our market out of the Midwest. We're expanding our market just in every type of demographic. And so, but primarily women so far.
So what operational blind spots did you uncover? Like you got into it. Were there any, and we're all talking hypothetically now, right? So, we're not trying to share the dirty laundry or anything, but I know for me, like I'll just give you an example in my perspective. So I run a digital marketing agency and I have graphic designers, I have copywriters, I have project managers, I have operational staff. Like I have people that do all these different roles. And for me, I would hire a position, but I wouldn't train to standard. I wouldn't hold them accountable. I would change multiple priorities. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but they would probably think I'm not exaggerating at all. But I was just like, well, I'm paying you all this money. Can't you just do it? And so I had to learn to really hire slow and fire fast and create a culture where people could communicate, where the team actually helped raise the mission, vision, and values throughout the organization. And it wasn't just me. So my blind spot was assuming that someone knew how to do something and not creating an environment of open communication. Did you run into any of those types of things?
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes. And, I think similar to you, when I came in the House of Kolor, I thought, oh, I could just make some things happen and move fast. And this is what I want to do. And I have a lot of energy and a lot of ideas. And especially as a franchisee, I saw the gaps and I wanted to fill them right away. And I would make some quick decisions. And I realized quickly, you can't do that at scale, right? You need to slow down and prioritize and be a clear leader. And that was a journey. And the good thing is our corporate team came with me on that journey, and we hired Story Brand. So Donald Miller, his company, quickly we realized, okay, we need to define who we are as an organization. What's our culture? What are our values? So that hadn't been done yet. And you could see that people were spinning their wheels a little bit. They were working so hard, but then how do we bring into light the right priorities for the right reasons with the right resources for the right people? And so we were able to do that within months. And so my boss, the global CEO, really trusted me with some of the resources I was asking for the US market. And so hiring Story Brand helped us a lot. And then in the beginning, I did have to carry things that were outside of my wheelhouse. So right. I'm not an admin-minded person. I don't have a marketing background. And so I had to hold some of that and bring in compliance and standards. And there were franchisees that asked me, they're like, Aly, what would you have done about some of these rules? I'm like, right. I would have had to sit with it and get some support on the admin side. So I was always cognizant of what can I bring in that will support these values, and then how do I do it in a way that it's just interesting as you're building all of that and you're taking something forward. How do you take everyone with you? Like it really is a journey, and I've been learning too, and taking steps back and steps forward, and they've been gracious. They've been gracious to me.
Well, certainly all the listeners and viewers today can realize that you are open-minded and coachable for doing this. All right, so I'm going to play a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Can't cut through the online chaos? This episode is powered by Ignite Visibility, the nation's expert in ROI-driven digital marketing. We help over 90 leading franchise brands and 2,500 locations outrank competitors and convert more customers. Ready to stand out and grow? Claim your free digital marketing audit at ignitevisibility.com. Ignite your growth.
All right, welcome back. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. So as a keynote speaker, I've been in this business for 34 years, okay? Over the years, I've hired probably 3 different, quote, color analysis people.
Okay.
And every single one of them. So I'm using this as now, yes, we've got listeners all over the world and everything listening to this episode, but I'm using this as my own little personal coaching program. You can send me an invoice later. But here's what happened. The first one, I spent all this money and they were going to go through my closet and pick out all the clothes and tell me what to do. And I don't really wear makeup, but on video, sometimes I do have color that I use if I'm doing a professional video or a virtual presentation. At first I was like, that was kind of weird for me. It's like, but now I don't mind. It's like, oh, I'm too shiny. Give me some powder. Right. But one of the things that they did was the first person did this color analysis, did a whole wardrobe, but I was wearing all these pastel colors and I was really washed out. Then I met another person who said, oh, with your skin tone, if your skin tone's light, you need to wear dark. And if your skin tone's dark, you can wear light. And they gave me a whole nother thing, And then the third person said, well, here we have to take a personality assessment. And then we're going to do this stuff. And for me, I realize a lot of the market are women, but for me, I'm on stage, I'm on TV, I'm visual. I need to do it. So here's what I've got. I have a stack of black t-shirts when I'm at home in my home office. 90% of the time I'm going to be wearing jeans and black jeans and a t-shirt. I also have found out that, sometimes even the speaking groups I go to, they would rather have me look a little younger. I wouldn't say younger, but not just a tie and a suit, even though I've got plenty. Well, then I've also been buying custom clothes. So I've got some really cool jackets. They're all over my site at profitrichresults.com because I decided, okay, I need to add some color. I need to add a little bit of vibrancy, not to be Elton John, like over the top, like, sparkly stuff. But I've done that, and I've had some pretty good comments, and even these glasses that I got it from Warby Parker, but they might not show on the video. But I probably twice a week I'll be just at a restaurant. Someone will say, "Oh, I really like your glasses." And I'm like, I didn't pick them out like that. I just grabbed them. So we'll do men first. For men out here that are thinking that's just a bunch of BS, I don't need that stuff. How do you approach that? Like, what are the couple basics? I know we've only got a certain episode length of show, but where would someone start, and what are some things that they certainly should do's and don'ts?
Yep, I love it. That's a great question. So I'll tell you real quick too, Ford, where House of Kolor is a little bit different from some of your past experience is our company's been around for 40 years. Our process has been time tested, and we have the scientific process we use with skin tone. So we always get that right. We do bring in your personality. So then when you're getting dressed, you feel like you. Like if you ever have that one outfit you wear that's your go-to, and it's something that connects with who you are on the inside, you feel really authentic and confident. We recreate that every time you get dressed, whether it's to go on a date or, for speaking. I mean, I think a lot of people, you have this great content to share. You're going to be judged on how you look. We're all judged 70 to 90%. The research varies of our communication is nonverbal. So what we give you are tools to control the narrative. So you don't have to show up empty-handed. We give you these tools. So I'll tell you about your glasses. We'll start there. So when you wear glasses, it communicates to people that you're competent. So people will trust those wearing glasses, and they'll process the information that they say at a little bit higher level than those who don't. So you're perceived as intelligent when you wear glasses. When you wear a tie protects you from looking vulnerable. It protects the most vulnerable place on your body, your jugular. So that's what a tie does. But sometimes as we get older, we want to soften that formality. Right. So that's why in some audiences, if you're speaking to like a young tech group, you might want to lose the tie. Okay. Right. And so one tip I'll give you too, you lead with your shoe. So you could wear jeans and a t-shirt, but if you're wearing a really dressy leather shoe, and that's a little too formal for that audience. Now, if you're wearing a high top Nike sneaker, that's a little too casual. So how do you find that shoe that communicates how formal you want to look? Okay. So those are some of the details that your outfit has. When you add a jacket, it adds authority. Sometimes you need more or less depending on the group. So all of our clothing, it sends out these messages. And then for color, that's a whole other space to unpack. Right. Our process is done in person, which makes it highly accurate. We spend an hour or two with each person. And we have so many men that come in that think, like someone drugged me to this. But when they see their skin change, you said pastels made you look washed out. We show you that color to color. And then we start pretty far apart with the range of colors, and we just get really narrow, and you get a quarter of all the colors in the world, which is millions of colors. So we can't do that right now, but some quick tips. Everybody looks good in primary red, safe color. Black can really be a little bit too formal. Sometimes people will perceive someone wearing black as unapproachable. So you're better off with navy. Yeah, better off with navy. And then you'll have your best neutrals. So you can really dress and again, control that message. They say you should never wear yellow when you first meet someone, that wearing yellow is perceived as untrustworthy. But it's a color you could always add to your wardrobe if you want to be trendy. Yellow was a big color last year. So there's lots to think about with all those details, and we help you get it right every time. It's worth the process to come in for a couple hours and see a stylist.
Well, one of the things I wanted to also point out, pull back the curtain. So none of this was prepared, everybody, but I want you to see how she answered the question. So she led with social proof and credibility. Then she led with established processes. Then she led with this is how we do it. So she set clear expectations. So regardless of whatever type of product or service that you're selling or business that you have, because we've got people listening to this that are just regular entrepreneurs and small business and corporate executives and private equity group people. At the end of the day, it's really about communication. And what you've done really well in your brand and throughout, why you've been able to grow is you're really helping that journey, because there is a lot of confusion out there. Now, what about AI? Is AI going to affect how people do color analysis? I'm just curious, as I help a lot of people leverage the power of AI. I just started this in your business. I wonder if you uploaded a bunch of photos, is that going to take market share, or is that going to cause more confusion, or how are you preparing for the new world that's coming?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. And I love AI for our franchisees. I think there's a lot of ways they can utilize it in their marketing and in the, the communication story that they tell. I think nothing will ever, even, some of the top executives looking at AI and using AI would say there's nothing that compares with a person-to-person experience. And
Right.
So the value that we give someone, there's the external part that you see, but you would not believe internally what our process does for people. I had a client early on. And so to do our process, they're sitting there in natural light, looking at a mirror. That's how we got to get the right answer. Otherwise, they're going to be confused like you are. And I'm draping her, and she would not look in the mirror. And after a certain bit of time, I put my hand on her shoulders and I said, hey, I really need you to look at yourself for me to get this right. And in talking to her, she started getting really emotional. And she said, I have alopecia. I've lost my eyebrows, my eyelashes. I'm wearing a wig. And I'm only here because I was told you would help me get the right color wig the next time I go to spend $500 on one. And I just want to get this over with. And I was able to sit with her and talk to her. And she left that time feeling so confident in how she looked that day as her natural self, like without adding anything to her look. She felt so great because she saw, okay, my natural beauty is enough. I can complement it with these simple tools and change how I feel when I go out in the world. And I started the business before the pandemic. So to sit in that space with people and give them a new narrative about how they see themselves and how they feel. And you talk about, some of those listeners that you have. I mean, we all have this internal narrative and what drives us and how we show up in the world. And we get to match that with how we dress. And when those things come together, it really is a powerful process. It's great.
No, I really believe so too. And I think that the human currency, or the real currency going forward, is going to be the human skills that people have. As AI does take certain roles away and automate certain redundant processes, it's going to free people up to have more relationships. I really believe, as much as I am presenting on AI all over the world, I'm still telling people, look, it's an and, not an or. It's not should you or shouldn't you. And it's an enhancement. And it really means that you need to really dig deep into your human skills, your communication skills, how you dress, how you show up. And I believe the in-person meetings are even going to be even more valuable going forward, especially with your business model, meeting with people and meeting with them in their organizations and things. All right. So looking ahead, where do you see the biggest opportunities for franchise innovation, for you and just as a brand?
Yeah, I think it's continuing to elevate what we're doing so well right now. It's never stopping and saying, okay, how can we make this experience even better for our clients? Our brand, we haven't invested a lot in marketing nationally. We haven't invested a lot in recruitment. All of our recruitment's been organic from clients getting the service done and saying, okay, I want to do this for other people. So I think it really is just starting to do the basics externally and doing them well. And that's going to take us forward. It's getting into more spaces as far as having those conversations and saying, hey, this applies to everybody for every personal, professional role. And, again, I think that's a person-to-person thing too. And so what does it look like to build relationships with companies, with suppliers? I think the possibilities are pretty endless for us right now. And it's going back to what we said before. How do we prioritize and and pick the right ones, and figuring out what lines up with our values is huge.
Well, I know that you had to build, being a franchisee and then obviously now the CEO. How do you help your franchisees when it comes to local marketing, to, building those local relationships? Are they coming in doing lunch and learns for organization, and like where other than the traditional methods, what are they doing to find and build their customers? Obviously, word of mouth is big. Obviously, referral marketing is huge. So other than just that, where else are they finding their clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, word of mouth is huge. There's definitely a big presence for House of Color on social media, because that visual story behind what we do is pretty big. And a lot of our franchisees are really good at telling that story. And so in person though, again, we're an in-person service. And as a franchise owner, you got to figure out how to market in your territory. So we just taught a workshop on that to our franchisees last week, and really teaching them, hey, what's your story? Like, just as a person, what's your story? What experiences do you have that you use here at House of Color? And then holding up that story, but then holding up client stories that really match the industry that you're speaking to. I think that's huge. And then I think really figuring out what spaces have loud voices right now. For women, that's women's health. That whole perimenopause, menopause conversation, the transformation that people experience. How can House of Color be a part of that? I think mental health is huge in the US right now. We're having a crisis, especially I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I lead a small group for her friends on Wednesday nights at our church. And the amount of these girls that have anxiety and being able, and being able to give them like more tools and resources to say, you're enough, you have what it takes. Like, here's how to show up and feel confident. I mean, those conversations are huge. We had a franchise owner last week that was at this workshop, and she said, Aly, my husband's been in counseling, and the counselor and him were talking, and my first name came up, and the counselor realized who I was and said to my husband, does your wife do that House of Color service? And he said, oh yeah, she does. She's a franchise owner. And she said, I'm not going to tell you the client's name, but I have another client, and this woman was suicidal, and something happened in her life after she saw your wife. And now it's all she talks about, like the community that your wife is building, these conversations she's a part of, the events that she goes to. She's like, it's what we talk about now in our sessions. And she said to this man, I want you to tell your wife, you literally saved that woman. And we were talking about it afterwards, and she's like, I don't even know what client that possibly could have been that came into my studio. But it just shows you again and again, people want connection, and for community marketing, that's all it is. And I think even at House of Color, our franchisees need more of that confidence to go out in their community and do that. So I'm so excited I get to be the one that equips them. So it's just such a joy. It's so fun.
Well, that's amazing. Now, do you guys have an annual conference? Do you ever bring everybody together? Do they go to the UK, or what do they do?
Oh, they wish. They would love it. But we go somewhere different every year. So this in 2026, we'll be in San Diego, and that's a really powerful time. The amount of noise and energy when you get, we have 294 franchise owners, but we invite their support staff too. And so it's about 350 women, and it's a joyful, noisy, colorful experience.
Well, I really like the fact that you're helping transform people. And again, the other takeaway for the listeners and viewers is, it's not about the product and service. I was working with a gentleman the other day, one of my high-end coaching clients, and he's trying to break it into the speaking business. And he said, hey, I've been calling people, and they ghost me, and they think I'm just trying to sell to them. And he was telling me all the reasons why it didn't work. And I said, are you asking anything about the economic and emotional pain? And he's like, no, I'm asking, do they want to have better customer experiences? I said, you're talking about the process. If you're talking about your products, your people, your products or services, or your process, it is a feature. If you want someone's attention, you have to lead with the benefits. You lead with the benefits, it gets the attention. And he said, well, I don't understand. I said, well, just use the words which means. So if you say, I'm going to help you find the best clothing, colors, and facial, which means you're going to feel more confident. You're going to have more self-awareness. So again, it goes back to using those magic words. So anybody listening to this, whatever you're selling, go look at your website, go look at your social media, go look at your LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. Go look at it and look at the narrative. Are you really leading with benefits? Now, I've been doing this since I was 15 years old, and it's amazing because, Aly, when I first started working as a brand specialist, I was an entrepreneur, and then I invented a bunch of products and sold them. I had childcare, automotive, and sporting goods products that I invented and sold through multiple channels of distribution. And then I retired, and then people started asking me how to do it, and that led to the digital agency and blah, blah, blah. Well, now I've had the opportunity of working with so many different brands, and it's so interesting because I'll go in and I'll work with an executive group or their planning committee, and I'll look at their brand, and I'm like, you guys are leading with features, not benefits. And they're like, what do you mean? We've been doing this for 40 years. And I'm like, well, is it 1 year, have you 40 years of growth, or 1 year you repeated 40 times, right? So I said, look, why do people do business with you? And I started asking some basic questions. And you've already communicated that extremely well through this whole episode. So you already are doing that. But for anybody listening here, if you're selling anything or promoting it, sales and marketing is just giving people enough information that they can make good decisions. It's not tricking them. It's not hype. Even Donald Miller's story brand model, which is very in alignment with what I teach, it's about how do you convey the emotional and the economic benefits first. He doesn't use that term like I do, but it's the same thing, because then they understand the alignments there. Because it's just like anything else. But I think that if anybody's trying to grow, you definitely have to make sure you lead with benefits. And if you're talking about your products, your process, your people, it is a feature. And just use the words "so what" and "which means." So if you said we have a wide range of services, so what? We have 40 years experience, so what? So 40 years experience means I can trust and confidence, right? So it's the piece that a lot of people leave out, that as a marketer you point out, and then all of a sudden your conversions go up, your customers are happy, your employees are happier, and all you've done is communicate more value.
I love that. That's so good. So I think that goes back to something you said earlier, which is being curious about people. And it was something that came up last week when we were doing that marketing workshop, the community marketing workshop. Like, if you held up a business, what problem might that business have that you can solve with your services and meeting those needs? So when you're doing that you're talking about doing that for businesses, but what about person to person? What kind of questions do you like to ask people to figure out what their problem might be and what they might need from?
All right. So in a real base, and just keep in mind, everybody, we did not give these questions to her ahead of time. This isn't a seeded question that she's going to ask me. All right. So I'll give you my answer. So, in your business, if you're working with any prospect, you obviously you've got let's take it as from a franchisee's role. They have their experience of working with other people and why they got into the franchise. But what they have to understand is the different personality styles of the people they're working with. So just as important what color and clothing and what they wear and how they look, it's their language patterns. So I can talk to somebody for 30 seconds and get a pretty good idea of, are they introverted? Are they extroverted? Are they dominant? Do they like social? Are they a little bit more reserved, or are they very analytical and they want all the details? So for me, it comes down to leveraging the power of DISC, not like everybody has seen it for thousands of years, right? But just from a marketing standpoint, here it is. So dominant, I'm a bottom line kind of guy. If someone's going to sell me, I want to know what the most expensive package is. I want to know what the shortest answer is, because my intent is, how do I get it done? Doesn't make me right. My first marriage proved this. Nothing against my first marriage. I'm just saying, it's how I make decisions. I want to get it done, and that's how I think, that's how I act. It does not make me right. And if you're listening to this, this is just a way to understand it. But if someone's selling to me, don't tell me about the history since the Earth's crust cooled, and talk to me about the chemicals that are in this, and the fabrics from India, and the silkworms that you make under the Amazon rock. Do not do that to me. You just need to say, you're going to look better, you're going to feel better, and you're going to be better. Okay, done. Here's my credit card, right? Would you agree for that first?
Yes. I love that. So that's the D.
All right. So now we're going to go to the influential. The influential is if they meet a prospect and that prospects ask them something personal, or if they have pictures of their kids, or if they're talking about the sporting games or the weather, they want social connection before anything. And if you don't
Yes.
give them an opportunity to build that social connection and you rush in and you say, well, I know we only have 15 minutes, so let me show, you're going to lose. They're gone. They're not going to pay any attention to you because their spidey sense goes up, just like you said, if you're wearing a tie or something, and they're going to say no. So if there's someone who wants to socialize a little bit because they're going to love you. And most of the time, if you can ask them questions, and the key is, if you're asking the wrong questions, the answer doesn't matter. So as a franchisee, it's really
Right.
important to really ask effective questions that are open-ended, not yes, no questions, that allow them to have a conversation. And then that helps you identify what that person's needs are. So that's the I, right? That's the influential. All right. So now let's move on. There's two more. Let's go to the steady. The steady people, they fear conflict, change, work, and failure. They don't want to make a decision because they don't know what the rules are. So a
Yeah.
steady person, their intent is to get along. They don't want any friction. So maybe they're working with somebody now and they don't want to hire you because they're already working with someone else, or they don't want to go home and tell their husband because they or spouse, let's use spouse generically, because they're going to have conflict. So they want to know rules, processes, procedures, and standards, because they know they're usually highly educated, because they know what rules are and they follow the rules. Me, I'm the opposite. I'm going to leap and grow my wings on the way down. But a steady person, if I'm selling or communicating to them, I usually talk a little slower, not because they think slower, but because it's a little bit less aggressive and they have an opportunity to process, because they want to process to make sure that there's no conflict. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I love this. Yeah.
And finally, we're going to move on to the analytical. I can't spell it. We'll say conscientious because it's a C, right? It's conscientious. And the conscientious people, they're slow to make a decision. They won't make the decision without all the facts and figures. So they're the ones that want to know that you've been in business 40 years and that people in their neighborhood have done it and that Sally down the street has done it. They're looking for social proof, credibility, and validation. They're looking to make sure that before they make their decision, they're going to get it right. They're going to ask a lot of questions. They're going to probably confuse somebody. If you're a franchisee and you like to get it done, you better hold off, because if you don't bring all the facts and figures and details, those get it right people they'll ghost you and they'll never do business. Not because you didn't have the best products and services, not because you weren't of value, but because you approach them in a style that makes them go, look, I can't make a decision like this. I don't have all the details. Like opposite of me, right? I didn't need the details. Yeah. I needed the result. So there's 4 intents. It's to get it done, have fun, get along, and get it right. So once again, it's to get it done. They're a get it done bottom line kind of person. They usually talk fast, interrupt too much. I've been guilty of that. They want to have fun and socialize. Now, I'm pretty good when it's a guest or I'm doing Fordify, but when I go speak at an organization and they have the dinner the night before, I'm networking, but I'm kind of quiet. I'm kind of an introvert when it comes to that. Once I'm done speaking, then I'm an extrovert. And then, of course, the get along people, you can always tell them because they always have food and medicine and supplies, because they're caretakers. They show up early, they volunteer. Why? Because they don't want any conflict. So they have foods and pens and paper and medicine and bomb shelters. I mean, they have everything because they want to make sure that everybody's taken care of, right? They're that caretaker that takes care of everybody. And then the get it right people, they're really kind of reserved. And some franchisees, when they're selling to get it rights, think, oh, that person was a jerk, or that person. No, that's just the lens. Just like these glasses, it's the lens they look through. So that's more than you wanted to know. But that's how I approach marketing and sales when I work with organizations, is to make sure they can appreciate the different styles. It's not about one style is better than the other. That's where a lot of people make mistakes when they think about these styles. It's just like you said, it's understanding human behavior. It's understanding the psychology, just like the psychology of color and all the things that you guys have learned, all your franchisees. It's the same thing applied to the sales process. So some people may respond to the testimonials and the Instagram posts and the Pinterest posts or Facebook or YouTube. And other people are like, what is this going to do for me? Is this going to help me be more confident? Am I going to have, or maybe in a dating world, or whatever it is. That's not the only reason you do this, but it's just about having more confidence. Does that help answer the question a little bit?
Oh yeah. It's such a great framework to think, okay, everyone's unique and everyone's a little bit complicated and you have the human behavior, but to say there's generally 4 approaches that people are coming from. If you can match, so would you say then when it comes to marketing, like the best language for sales meets all 4 needs, or do you just say it 4 different ways?
No, I say it's best to ask open-ended questions to get the prospect to communicate. When you're doing marketing materials, you want to hit middle of the road. You want to have your marketing messages clear enough for the get it done, but detailed enough for the get it right. And it's a fine balance. So like when we do campaigns, marketing campaigns, video sales letters, digital marketing, marketing automation, whatever, we always look at those different touch points to make sure that we want to make sure you understand what the ideal client profile is. In your case, it's women in this age group, from this age group, with this income level. Like you want to really understand your avatar, your ideal client. And then you would want to talk to the other franchisees who already are doing this to see what's worked best for them. Talk to the franchisor and follow their best practices. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, right? But then it really comes down to, you can use this same process, Aly, with your staff. Now, if they have staff, so if they're hiring a person to process this or this. Now, in your franchise, how many employees, if any, do they have typically in one of their franchisees?
Yeah. So our franchise system, a lot of our franchisees have independent contractors that go through our training process. And so the average franchisee that has, some support staff, they usually have between 2 to 4, but there's franchise owners. When I had 14. And so, but I had multiple franchises. And so it just depends on the area that you're in and the client demand, or, sometimes it's so interesting thinking through that framework. Sometimes the franchise owner is a have fun person,
right?
And they want to bring in a get it done person, so it's like balancing that and teaching our franchise owners, what do you look for and what's your voice in your community? And so balancing that out.
Yeah, really. So the answer really is it works for both marketing and sales and leadership and management and team building. Because so for example, on my staff, one of the things we did is we had everybody take their DISC profiles, and they've done predictive index, and they've done Myers-Briggs and emotional intelligence. And we have all their assessments. And then we give them to everybody else. And then we also created a custom GPT in ChatGPT where we put all the assessments. And then if I need to communicate something to my operations manager, I go to the ChatGPT and I say, I need this done. Write the instructions and write the email. And it has reduced so much conflict because now the email and the communication is getting written in that style. And the same thing with a prospect. If your franchisees have prospects or they've filled out a questionnaire or an assessment, or maybe they had a conversation, you can put that data into ChatGPT and say, based on this conversation I just had, what style do you feel like this person is? Because AI can help you detect that and then help you craft it. And again, it's not manipulation, it's communication.
No,
sales and marketing is just giving people enough information that they can make good decisions.
Yes. And I think that shows your journey as a leader, the way that you've learned, okay, I've communicated to this person this way. It didn't always work. So how can I learn the way that they communicate best? And then if you have one of our values at House of Kolor is growth mindset. So we're always looking and saying, okay, am I having a growth mindset?
Right.
Am I experiencing friction here because I'm not? And then you think about being on the franchisor side. Okay, if I'm sending out a communication to our franchisees, being mindful that there might be a lot of different interpretations or needs or experiences, and they're filtering that communication through that lens. And so I've had to grow a lot as a leader to not take it personal, like if something doesn't land. And, and that's been, I sometimes say nothing has refined my character more than being a business owner or in leadership. And it's such a great journey to be on. It really is.
Well, you can just hear it in your voice and your spirit that you do. So I really appreciate it. Any closing thoughts you have for our listeners today?
No, I just would encourage everyone to stay curious about people, about business, about your colors. And, just you're worth the time to take to build out these skills. I know sometimes I'm around people and they think, oh, that's a little fluffy. It's not. You're worth knowing your story and what drives you and how you show up in the world. You're worth that. And so invest in it.
Thank you. That was really great. All right, everybody. So thanks for tuning in to Fordify Live. We're all about accelerating your business growth. Big thanks to Aly Van Eiten for sharing what it really takes to scale a franchise brand with excellence and with confidence. Until next time, keep innovating, keep growing, and keep fortifying your success.
Thank you for tuning in to Fordify Live. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the Business Growth Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. We air weekly at 11 a.m. Central Time. So until next week, keep pushing the boundaries and never stop growing.